If your child received notice that their financial aid has been suspended, don't freak out, okay? I know how stressful this can be. College is expensive, right? And losing any financial aid will certainly hinder a lot of students when it comes to graduating with as little debt as possible. But here's the good news. Just because it's suspended doesn't mean that it's gone forever and that this is a final decision. In many cases, your student can file an appeal and possibly get their financial aid reinstated. So today I'm going to walk you through step by step a guide to help you and your students successfully appeal a financial aid suspension. We're going to talk about all the different reasons this could possibly happen, but I'm going to break down why and what to do and how to get it back. Now make sure you hit subscribe because every week we have a new strategy for your family to work towards a debt-free education. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, where we redefine paying for college to help families build strong financial futures and help their students avoid on average 21 years of paying back student loan debt. Now, just a quick note, this is for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. I'm not familiar with how this works for international students. So let's begin with why could financial aid be suspended? Before filing an appeal, it is important to understand this. We cannot argue it unless we understand why it happened. And you want to make sure you know the truth, okay? Just a quick note, because obviously your student is technically an adult right now and you are not necessarily filled in. So we need to see this letter. We need to understand why before we can argue it. So one of the main reasons is not meeting SAP, satisfactory academic performance requirements. Most colleges require students to maintain a minimum GPA, usually around a 2.0, but it can be higher depending on the category or what it was awarded for. For example, if it's merit-based, it might require a 3.0 or a 3.5. And they probably also have a requirement of passing a certain number of classes. We have a video very specifically focused on a financial aid appeal letter. We have a video on financial appeal letters for bad grades. So if that is something, then I would recommend checking out that video. We'll link to it below, or you can click on it here. Another reason could be too many withdrawals or incomplete classes. So a lot of times financial aid will require them to take a minimum of 12 credit hours, which is 4 classes. So if they drop below that, they could lose their full-time funding. Another one would be exceeding the maximum time frame. So they don't just get FAFSA funding from the government, for example, or from universities forever. They have to graduate within a certain amount of time. So if they are taking too long to complete their degree, then the aid might be cut off. And then of course there's other circumstances. Maybe your child had a major life event, an illness, a family emergency, financial hardship. This could also impact their eligibility, or it could impact the previous reasons I mentioned. Either way, we need to know the specific reason for us to shape the appeals letter. Now, comment below if you're going through this and how are you feeling, or what is the reason that you're experiencing this? Maybe we can help brainstorm some ideas to help get that money back. Okay, so let's get into the steps. So step 1 is to review the suspension notice. So we need to read this in and out, look at it very carefully. It should include the reason for suspension, if it's a specific SAP requirement that wasn't met, it should list that, and it should have instructions for filing an appeal and probably a deadline to do so. If anything is unclear in this letter, we want to make sure that we reach out to the financial aid department ASAP and ask for clarification. Step 2 would be to gather documentation. So anything that can show evidence to support your student's case will be helpful. Maybe it's medical records. Maybe your student was very sick, hospitalized, doctor's notes, anything around that line. Or if they had to take care of someone that was sick, that could be something as well. It could be death certificates or obituaries if someone very close to them died and that impacted them. Maybe work schedules or financial documents if they had to work extra hours or lost income that resulted in not being able to focus on classes. Another one could be letters from professors or advisors explaining your child's struggles and efforts to improve themselves. So kind of like a recommendation letter. Either way, the more evidence provided, the stronger the appeal. Third is the most important step, and this is focusing on writing a persuasive appeal letter. This is the most important part. It should be very clear, professional, calm, cool, and collected. It should also be to the point. We want to try to keep it pretty succinct. So always have your students start off with a respectful greeting. address it to a specific person if we know who it is, or the financial aid department. Next, we want to explain the situation honestly, acknowledge the reason, take responsibility, make sure your student does take responsibility for what it is, where they could have maybe done better. And also we want to show effort. So if your child made mistakes, it's okay to own up to them, but we also want to show how we're working to improve it. So for example, it could be, I understand that my low GPA led to the suspension. I take full responsibility and have already met with an academic advisor to create a plan for improvement. I've set up recurring sit-ins with this class specifically with the teacher's assistant, and they're helping me improve my grades there. So showing actual action and that we are learning from our mistakes can really make a difference. So that leads into the next step, and that is to present a plan for success. They want to see that your student is taking action. So again, some steps can include meeting with an academic advisor, retaking failed courses, reducing work hours maybe to focus on their education, seeking tutoring or academic support, meeting with a teacher's assistant. There's lots of things that they could be doing. Maybe learning time management, taking a time management course, lots of things, but we want to have a clear plan and we want to communicate that. Then we want to specifically request a reinstatement of financial aid. Be specific and ask for a second chance. Have your student, maybe they can say, I respectfully ask that the financial aid office reinstate this financial aid so that I can continue my education and stay on track for graduation and prove that I can do better, and implement this plan that we've already started. And then lastly, we want to close with gratitude. Thank them for their time and consideration. Have your students sign it with their full name and their ID number. Now, after we have that letter fine-tuned, we want to make sure that we submit it well before the deadline. Let's not wait until last minute. But that said, by the deadline, we do not want to miss the deadline. That's for sure. Double check the deadline, triple check it, put it on our calendar, make sure that we're getting it in, and submit any appeal requirements in the format that they ask. Maybe it's through email, maybe it's a PDF that needs to be uploaded to a portal, maybe they want them to come into the office, whatever it is, but get confirmation on that process. Step 5 is to follow up and prepare for a decision. So after they've done this, it is great. It's very respectable for a student to follow up with the financial aid office, again, in a respectful manner, within a decent time frame, but stay proactive. So even if it's denied, some will allow a second appeal, maybe to further prove that your student's making changes, but staying on top of this, following up, asking if they've seen it. Again, we don't need to do that in the first 24 hours, but maybe a few days later, give them some time. I'm sure they're busy, but showing, hey, I'm here, I submitted this, I care about it, it matters, right? They want to see that. Now, if a appeal is denied, what can we do? There are still some options. So we can ask for a probationary period. So some schools give students a specific amount of time to improve their grades, and if they do so, then their aid just continues. So asking for that probationary period where they have an actual contingency, they have a requirement based on it. We can, of course, look for private scholarships. Private scholarships often have essays that we can submit, like our appeal letter, so we can sell it. If you're having a hard time finding legitimate scholarships your student can apply to, check out my free webinar. Just go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar. I cover my 6 steps to securing scholarships, where you can find legitimate scholarships with less competition. A third option might be to consider payment plans. Maybe we break up the payments so that we don't have to just borrow debt for it. And that way we could kind of cash flow it as we go. And then lastly, maybe we can find out if there's other financial aid options through the university that we were not considered for, that we maybe denied. Maybe there's work study, for example, that we said no to because we had financial aid, but now we need it. So asking them about, okay, well, is there any other money that we can tap into? That's a huge discussion at the financial aid office as well as at the department head. So if your student's in the School of Education or the School of Business, talking to that department as well as the financial aid office. All right, so that said, lots of tips, lots of suggestions here. So if your student has lost their financial aid, has received a financial aid suspension letter, don't just accept it. Try to submit an appeal, work with your student on this, make sure that they're spearheading it, but you can guide them on this and do it in a respectful way. I gave you guys lots of specific steps on this. So, and comment below if you have any questions or if you're stuck anywhere. We'll love to help you guys through this. But that said, it's important to submit something calm, cool, and collected, but quickly, meet the criteria, meet the deadline, explain what happened, and show an action plan. All right. Hit subscribe. Every week we have a new strategy to help your family pay for college. And don't forget about that free webinar for scholarships. We always want to be doing that process until our student graduates from college. Just go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar for that. All right, I'll see you in next week's video.